The trading station orbiting Kepler 442b hummed with the usual cacophony of alien voices, mechanical whirs, and the occasional burst of static from overloaded translators. Commander Zethkar of the Hegemony Fleet adjusted his scaled grip on his plasma rifle as he surveyed the crowded marketplace through predatory yellow eyes. His reptilian features twisted into what passed for a smile among his species. "Remember," he hissed to his squad of 12 elite soldiers, each one a veteran of countless conquests. "The humans are weak, their female especially. Intel says she can barely lift standard equipment without assistance devices." The soldiers chuckled, a sound like grinding metal. They had heard the stories about humans, soft, fragile creatures who had somehow stumbled into space travel despite their obvious physical limitations. The fact that one of their females served as a supposed warrior was laughable to the hegemony forces. At the far end of the station's main corridor, Staff Sergeant Maya Chen sat hunched over a steaming cup of synthetic coffee, her small frame nearly lost in the oversized chair of an alien cafe. Her dark hair hung limply around her face, and she moved with deliberate slowness, as if each gesture required careful consideration. The other patrons gave her pitying looks. Humans were known throughout the galaxy as the charity case species, kept around more out of sympathy than any real contribution to galactic society. Maya's brown eyes tracked the hegemony soldiers as they spread through the station. She had been monitoring their communications for the past 3 days, ever since her ship had docked for what appeared to be routine maintenance. The universal translator in her ear crackled with their harsh language. "The target is the human cargo ship in Bay 94, Zethkar's voice carried clearly. "Intelligence suggests they're carrying prototype gravity manipulation technology. The Terran Defense Force thinks they can hide their experiments behind their pathetic reputation." Maya set down her cup with trembling hands, the motion so pronounced that the blue-skinned Altarian at the next table leaned over with concern. "Are you well, small one?" the alien asked in heavily accented standard. "Do you require medical assistance?" "Just tired," Maya replied in a voice barely above a whisper. "Long journey." The Altarian nodded sympathetically and returned to his meal. Maya slowly stood, her movements awkward as she shouldered her worn travel pack. To any observer, she looked like exactly what the galaxy expected from a human: weak, struggling, barely capable of managing her own equipment. Zethkar watched her pathetic display from across the corridor and felt his confidence surge. If this was what passed for military personnel among humans, their mission would be even easier than anticipated. He gestured to 2 of his soldiers. "Follow the female. She may lead us to additional intelligence about their cargo ship's defenses." Maya shuffled through the station's winding passages, occasionally stopping to rest against walls or to check her breathing apparatus, a common sight since human physiology was notoriously fragile in artificial atmospheric conditions. The 2 hegemony soldiers trailing her barely bothered to maintain stealth. What threat could this frail creature possibly pose? She paused at an observation deck overlooking the docking bays, her slight form silhouetted against the massive viewport. Below, cargo ships from dozens of species loaded and unloaded goods under the watchful eyes of station security. Bay 94 held a modest human vessel, its hull scarred and patched, typical of Terran engineering, functional but unimpressive. "She's studying her ship," one of the following soldiers reported through his comm. "Probably worried about whether it will hold together for another jump." Maya's reflection in the viewport showed a woman who appeared to be fighting back tears. Her shoulders shook slightly, and she pressed one hand against the transparasteel as if drawing strength from the sight of her vessel. What the hegemony soldiers couldn't see was the subtle micro-expressions that flickered across her features for fractions of seconds, the way her eyes tracked security patterns, noted guard rotations, calculated sight lines, and response times. Her apparent emotional distress masked a tactical assessment that would have impressed the most seasoned military strategists in the galaxy. 20 minutes later, Maya made her way to Bay 94. The Hegemony Squad had positioned themselves strategically throughout the docking area, using cargo containers and service equipment as cover. Zethkar crouched behind a massive fuel tanker, watching as the pathetic human approached her ship. The vessel's cargo ramp lowered with a hydraulic whine that echoed through the bay. Maya stumbled slightly on the incline, a detail that made Zethkar's mandibles click with amusement. She disappeared into the ship's interior, and the commander activated his comm unit. "All units, prepare for boarding action. Target is inside the vessel. Remember, we need the gravity technology intact, but the crew is expendable." 3 minutes passed, then 5. Zethkar's patience began to wear thin when Maya reappeared at the top of the ramp. But something had changed. She no longer moved with the hesitant shuffle of a weakened human. Instead, she walked with purpose, though still slowly enough to maintain her disguise. In her hands, she carried what appeared to be a standard maintenance toolkit, the kind used for routine ship repairs. To the untrained eye, it looked harmless. Zethkar, however, noticed that she held it with a confidence that hadn't been there before. Maya began working on an external panel near the ship's entrance, her movements now steady and precise. She was no longer the trembling waif who had struggled with her coffee cup. The change was subtle enough that the watching aliens might have attributed it to being in familiar surroundings. But Zethkar felt the first stirring of unease. "Commander," came a voice through his comm. "Thermal scans show she's alone on the ship. Life support systems indicate standard human atmospheric requirements. Should we proceed?" Zethkar studied Maya's form one more time. She had removed her outer jacket, revealing arms that, while still appearing thin by galactic standards, moved with surprising coordination. She was humming, actually humming, as she worked. "Begin approach," he ordered, "but maintain caution. Something feels different." The first 2 soldiers emerged from cover, advancing on the cargo ramp with weapons ready but not yet raised. The sight of armed hegemony forces should have sent any civilian into immediate panic, but Maya simply glanced up from her work and offered them a weak smile. "Oh, hello," she said, her voice still carrying that same fragile quality. "Are you here for an inspection? I hope everything's in order. I'm not very good with regulations." The soldiers exchanged glances. This was exactly the response they expected from a frightened human. One of them stepped closer, his scaled features arranged in what he probably thought was a reassuring expression. "Just routine, female. Please step away from your vessel." Maya nodded eagerly, gathering her tools with clumsy haste that resulted in several items clattering to the deck plating. She bent to retrieve them, apologizing profusely for the noise. The soldiers relaxed further. This was proceeding exactly as their briefings had suggested. What they failed to notice was that Maya's toolkit had contained far more items than any standard maintenance kit should hold, or that when she bent to collect the dropped tools, her hands moved with mechanical precision to specific predetermined locations. She straightened up, her arms full of equipment, and gave the soldiers another apologetic smile. "I'm sorry I'm so clumsy. My superior always says humans shouldn't be trusted with delicate work." "Your superior is wise," the first soldier replied. "Now move away from—" Maya's transformation happened in less than 2 seconds. The fragile, apologetic human disappeared, replaced by something that moved like liquid death. The maintenance tools in her hands revealed themselves as components of a modular weapon system that assembled itself with frightening efficiency. The first soldier's words died in his throat as a monomolecular blade emerged from what had appeared to be a simple calibration device. Maya's movement was so fast that the hegemony warrior's enhanced reflexes barely registered the threat before the blade found the gap in his armor plating just below his mandible. The second soldier managed to raise his weapon, but Maya was already inside his guard. What had looked like a harmonic resonator from her toolkit now hummed with deadly energy as it disrupted the molecular bonds of his rifle. The weapon simply crumbled to dust in his hands. Zethkar watched in stunned disbelief as his two elite soldiers, veterans of campaigns across 17 star systems, fell to a creature who should have been physically incapable of meaningful resistance. His comm unit exploded with panicked voices as the remaining 10 soldiers realized their intelligence had been catastrophically wrong. Maya stood between the bodies of her attackers, no longer bothering to maintain her disguise. Her posture had changed completely. Gone was the hunched, uncertain stance of a struggling human. Instead, she moved with the fluid grace of a predator that had been temporarily pretending to be prey. She looked directly at Zethkar's hiding spot and smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "I know you're out there," she called, her voice now carrying clearly across the docking bay. "All 12 of you. Your positioning is adequate but predictable. Hegemony tactical doctrine hasn't changed much in the last 50 years. Zethkar felt his blood chill. How could she know their exact numbers? How could she identify their species' military strategies? The intelligence reports had been explicit. Humans were a minor species with no significant military capability. "You're wondering how I know so much about your people," Maya continued, beginning to walk down the cargo ramp with unhurried confidence. "The answer is simple. Humans have been studying you for a very long time. We've analyzed every battle you've fought, every world you've conquered, every species you've enslaved." She paused at the bottom of the ramp, her eyes scanning the cargo containers and equipment where she knew the soldiers were hidden. "The thing about being underestimated," she said loud enough for all of them to hear, "is that people tend to ignore you. They don't notice when you're listening to their communications. They don't realize when you're recording their tactical movements. They certainly don't expect you to be anything other than what they want to see." One of the soldiers, younger and more impulsive than the others, broke cover and opened fire. Maya moved before the plasma bolt reached her position, flowing around the incoming energy with movements that seemed to defy human biology. She closed the distance to her attacker in 3 bounds that covered nearly 30 meters. The young soldier's armor was rated to withstand direct hits from heavy artillery. Maya's bare hands tore through it like tissue paper. "Impossible," Zethkar breathed into his comm. "Humans don't possess that kind of strength." Maya heard him clearly. Her enhanced senses, another detail that hadn't appeared in any hegemony intelligence report, picked up the transmission with perfect clarity. "Most humans don't," she agreed, seemingly speaking to the air. "But I'm not most humans." She reached into what remained of her maintenance kit and withdrew a device that looked like a simple data pad. When she activated it, holographic displays sprang to life around her position, showing detailed schematics of the docking bay and the exact positions of each remaining hegemony soldier. "I'm what my people call a Masterborn," Maya explained as she began walking toward the nearest hidden position. 1 in 10 million humans is born with enhanced capabilities, strength, speed, reflexes, intelligence. For centuries, we hid among the general population. When humanity reached the stars, we realized we had a choice. Another soldier broke cover, this one attempting to flank her from behind. Maya spun and threw what appeared to be a simple wrench from her toolkit. The tool struck the warrior center mass with enough force to send his 200-kilogram frame flying into a cargo container hard enough to leave a dent. "We could reveal ourselves and become humanity's obvious military elite," Maya continued, not even breathing hard. "Or we could use the galaxy's preconceptions to our advantage." Zethkar was beginning to understand. The intelligence reports weren't wrong about humans in general. They were a physically limited species. But this female represented something else entirely, something that had been hiding in plain sight. Every human ship carries at least one Masterborn, Maya said, now moving systematically toward each soldier's position. We pretend to be normal crew members, engineers, communications officers, cargo handlers. We act weak and helpless because that's what you expect to see. She paused beside a storage unit where 2 soldiers had taken cover. Without apparent effort, she grasped the edge of the 5-ton container and tilted it just enough to expose the warriors hiding behind it. But when threats emerge, she continued, her voice taking on a harder edge, we drop the act. The 2 exposed soldiers opened fire simultaneously. Maya moved between their plasma bolts like she was dancing, her enhanced reflexes allowing her to track the energy weapon's firing patterns with almost casual ease. She reached them before they could adjust their aim. What followed was less a fight than a demonstration. Every technique in the Hegemony military manual proved useless against an opponent who moved faster than their weapons could track and hit harder than their armor could withstand. Maya disabled both soldiers with surgical precision, leaving them alive but thoroughly incapacitated. Zethkar realized his squad was being systematically dismantled by a single opponent who wasn't even trying to kill them. The human was making a point, demonstrating the vast gulf between what the galaxy thought it knew about her species and reality. "Commander," came a panicked voice through his comm, "request immediate withdrawal. This isn't a human. This is something else." "Negative," Zethkar replied, though his own voice carried tremors he couldn't quite suppress. "Continue the mission. It's one opponent. We have superior numbers." Maya's laugh echoed through the docking bay, a sound that somehow managed to be both genuinely amused and terrifying. "Superior numbers," she repeated. "That's what the Vorthan Empire said when they tried to raid the agricultural colonies. That's what the Christek Consortium believed when they attacked our mining operations. That's what the Hegemony thought when you decided to target our research vessels." She had reached another hiding spot. This time, she didn't bother with subtlety. Maya simply punched through the cargo container's hull plating and dragged out the soldier hiding inside. The warrior's struggles were futile against her enhanced strength. "The thing is," Maya said as she gently but firmly restrained her captive, "every time someone attacks human vessels, we learn more about them. We study their weapons, their tactics, their weaknesses." She looked directly toward Zethkar's position again, and he realized with growing horror that she had known his exact location from the beginning. "And when we've learned enough," she concluded, "we stop pretending to be helpless." The remaining soldiers, there were 6 left, including Zethkar, found themselves facing a decision that ran counter to everything in their military training. They were elite warriors, veterans of countless campaigns against species far more physically capable than humans were supposed to be. But this single female had methodically dismantled half their squad without apparent effort. Maya seemed to sense their hesitation. She released her latest captive and stepped into the open area at the center of the docking bay, spreading her arms wide in a gesture of apparent vulnerability. "I'm going to give you a choice," she announced. "You can continue this attack and discover exactly how much you don't know about human capabilities. Or you can withdraw and report back to your superiors that humanity is not what you believed." One of the remaining soldiers, his nerve finally breaking completely, broke cover and ran for the bay's exit. Maya made no move to stop him. "Smart choice," she observed. "Your people need to know the truth eventually." Zethkar found himself facing an impossible situation. His mission parameters were clear: secure the gravity manipulation technology and eliminate any witnesses. But those parameters had been based on intelligence that was proving catastrophically inaccurate. He activated his comm unit one more time. "All remaining units fall back to extraction point. Mission parameters have changed." Maya nodded approvingly as the remaining Hegemony soldiers began their withdrawal. But as Zethkar prepared to follow his troops, she called out to him. "Commander," she said, her voice carrying clearly across the bay, A word of advice. Zethkar paused, his hand on his sidearm, though he was beginning to suspect that conventional weapons would prove useless against this opponent. The next time you plan to attack human vessels, Maya continued, remember that our weakness has always been a lie. We've been hiding in plain sight for 200 years, learning about every species in the galaxy while they ignored us. She began walking back toward her ship, her movements once again casual and unthreatening. But we're tired of hiding, she added. The galaxy is about to discover what humanity is really capable of. As Zethkar fled the docking bay with his remaining troops, he couldn't shake the image of Maya's final expression, not angry or threatening, but patient. Like a predator that had finished playing with its food and was ready to hunt in earnest. The intelligence reports had been wrong about more than just human physical capabilities. They had been wrong about everything. 3 days after the incident at Kepler Station, Admiral Vex Thul of the Hegemony Third Fleet stood before a holographic display showing security footage from the docking bay. The reptilian commander's scaled fingers drummed against his command chair as he watched Maya Chen systematically dismantle his elite strike team with movements that defied every piece of intelligence the hegemony possessed about human capabilities. "Run it again," he ordered his tactical officer. The footage repeated for the 15th time. Vex Thul watched Maya's transformation from helpless civilian to devastating warrior, noting details that became more disturbing with each viewing. Her movements weren't just fast. They showed perfect understanding of hegemony combat doctrine. She anticipated attacks before they developed, countered strategies that had never failed against other species. "Analysis, Commander Zethkar," Vex Thul said without turning from the display. Zethkar stood at attention, his usually confident bearing replaced by something approaching shell shock. "Sir, the human female demonstrated capabilities that exceed our understanding of their species by several orders of magnitude. Physical strength approaching Kroban levels, reflexes faster than Zenthran warriors, tactical awareness that suggests advanced combat training." "Training by whom?" Vex Thul's voice carried the edge that had cowed hundreds of subordinates. "Our intelligence indicates humans have no significant military tradition. They're a trading species, barely capable of defending their own territory. Sir, I believe our intelligence has been deliberately misled." The admission hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Vex Thul finally turned to face his subordinate, yellow eyes glowing with barely controlled fury. "Explain." Zethkar activated his personal datapad, displaying transcripts from the encounter. The female spoke with detailed knowledge of our tactical doctrines, mentioned specific battles we've fought against other species. She knew our positioning before we revealed ourselves. This suggests long-term intelligence gathering. "By humans?" Vex Thul's mandibles clicked dismissively. "Impossible. We've monitored their communication networks for decades. They barely coordinate their own trade routes effectively." "Unless," Zethkar said carefully, "we've been monitoring the communications they wanted us to see." The bridge fell silent except for the background hum of ship systems. The implications of what Zethkar suggested went far beyond a single failed raid. If humans had been deliberately presenting false intelligence about their capabilities, it meant a deception spanning generations. Vex Thul returned his attention to the security footage, watching Maya's final moments before she disappeared back into her ship. "She mentioned something about being Masterborn. Research that term immediately." Meanwhile, aboard Maya's apparently modest cargo vessel, now 3 jumps away from Kepler Station, a very different scene was unfolding. The ship's interior bore no resemblance to the basic cargo hauler it appeared to be from outside. Advanced holographic displays covered every surface, showing star charts, fleet movements, and communication intercepts from dozens of species. Maya stood in the center of what was clearly a sophisticated command center, her appearance once again transformed. Gone was any pretense of weakness or uncertainty. She wore form-fitting tactical gear that enhanced her already considerable capabilities, and her movements carried the precise efficiency of someone who had spent decades perfecting the art of warfare. "Status report," she said to the empty air. "All monitoring stations confirm successful deception maintenance," replied a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. "Hegemony forces are withdrawing according to predicted patterns. No indication they've identified the true nature of our vessel." Maya nodded, settling into a chair that immediately adjusted to provide optimal support for her enhanced physiology. Around her, the holographic displays shifted to show new data streams, intelligence reports from Masterborn operatives scattered across the galaxy, each one maintaining their own carefully constructed facade of human weakness. "Initiate Phase 2, she commanded. "It's time to accelerate the timeline." The ship's AI processed her order with electronic efficiency. "Confirming Phase 2 authorization. All assets will receive updated operational parameters within 6 hours. Estimated resistance level?" Maya considered the question. For 2 centuries, humanity had played the role of the galaxy's harmless newcomers, building trade relationships while their hidden elite gathered intelligence and prepared for this moment. Every attack on human vessels had been allowed to succeed just enough to maintain the illusion of vulnerability while providing valuable data about potential enemies. "Resistance will be significant once they understand what they're facing," she said finally. "Most species have built their strategies around our supposed limitations. Reality will be jarring for them." She gestured, and the displays shifted to show detailed analyses of every major galactic power. The hegemony's military doctrine, based on overwhelming force and superior technology. The Christek Consortium's reliance on automated systems and economic warfare. The Vorthan Empire's rigid hierarchical command structure that crumbled without clear leadership. Each species had weaknesses that humanity had spent generations cataloging and preparing to exploit. "Priority target, Hegemony Third Fleet," Maya continued. "Admiral Vexthul's forces represent their most experienced combat units. If we can demonstrate the futility of conventional tactics against our capabilities, it should accelerate political realignment." "Acknowledged. Deploying assets now." Across the galaxy, carefully placed Masterborn operatives received their new instructions. Dr. Sarah Kim, who had spent 15 years as a fragile medical researcher aboard a Christek mining platform, began making subtle modifications to the station's life support systems. Engineer Marcus Torres, whose clumsy maintenance work had made him a source of gentle amusement among his Vorthan Empire colleagues, started introducing nearly invisible flaws into their ship's defensive grid. Each operative had spent years or even decades building their cover identities, playing their roles with Academy Award-level commitment to the deception. They had endured countless indignities, absorbed endless condescension, and watched their people be dismissed as irrelevant while they gathered the intelligence that would change everything. Back on Vexthul's flagship, the research team had made disturbing discoveries about the term Masterborn. Ancient human historical records, previously dismissed as primitive mythology, contained scattered references to individuals with extraordinary capabilities. The records were fragmentary and often contradictory, but patterns emerged that aligned disturbingly well with what they had witnessed. "Admiral," the research coordinator reported, "cross-referencing human historical databases suggests the existence of enhanced individuals throughout their recorded history. The references are subtle, often presented as religious figures or mythological heroes, but the consistency across cultures indicates possible reality." Vexthul studied the compiled data with growing unease. Images of human figures performing impossible feats. Stories of individuals who could lift massive weights or move with supernatural speed. If these weren't myths but actual historical records, What percentage of the human population might possess these capabilities? He asked. Unknown, sir. However, statistical analysis of their historical records suggests approximately 1 in 10 million births produce individuals with significant enhancement. The numbers were staggering. Humanity's population across their various colonies and homeworld exceeded 50 billion. If even a fraction of a percent possessed enhanced capabilities, they were looking at a hidden army numbering in the millions. Sir, Communications Officer Veltan interrupted, incoming priority transmission from Hegemony Intelligence Command. The main display shifted to show Director Krathvol, head of Hegemony Intelligence. His expression carried the grim determination of someone delivering catastrophic news. Admiral Vexthul, we have a situation that requires immediate attention. 3 hours ago, our monitoring stations detected coordinated equipment failures across 17 different operations involving human personnel. Vexthul felt his blood chill. Equipment failures. Defensive systems suddenly developing critical flaws. Life support experiencing mysterious malfunctions. Communication networks suffering from inexplicable interference. In every case, the problems developed on facilities where humans were present in support roles. The implications struck like a physical blow. Maya's demonstration hadn't been an isolated incident. It had been a signal. Across the galaxy, humanity's hidden operatives were simultaneously dropping their facades and revealing their true capabilities. Current status of affected operations: 15 facilities have gone completely dark. 2 stations are reporting massive casualties among non-human personnel. Our agents at Crystal Station 7 transmitted a single message before communication ceased. The humans weren't what we thought. Vexthul closed his eyes, feeling the weight of command settling like a crushing burden on his shoulders. Estimated scope of human infiltration? Unknown. We're now questioning the reliability of every intelligence assessment involving human presence. Admiral, we may be facing a species that has been systematically deceiving us for centuries. The conversation was interrupted by proximity alarms throughout the ship. Veltan's voice carried barely controlled panic as he reported incoming contacts. Admiral, sensors detect 3 vessels approaching our position. Configuration unknown. They don't match any known human ship designs. On the main display, 3 sleek vessels approached with impossible grace. Unlike the battered, cobbled-together ships typically associated with human technology, these craft showed design aesthetics that somehow managed to be both completely alien and undeniably advanced. Sir, the sensor operator called out, those ships are generating energy signatures that exceed our maximum theoretical output by a factor of 12. How is that possible? Vexthul stared at the approaching vessels with growing comprehension. Because everything we thought we knew about human technology was also a lie. The lead ship opened a communication channel. Maya's face appeared on the screen, but now she wore what was clearly military uniform. Not the simple coveralls of a cargo handler, but the sophisticated gear of an advanced military force. Admiral Vexthul, she said with polite formality, I believe we need to discuss the new political reality. You're requesting surrender? Vexthul's voice carried more hope than confidence. Maya's expression remained neutral. I'm offering you the chance to be the first hegemony commander to understand what humanity actually represents. Your choice is simple. Learn the truth about our capabilities through demonstration, or accept our invitation for peaceful dialogue. Around Vexthul, his bridge crew prepared for combat with practiced efficiency. Weapon systems powered up, shields strengthened, tactical displays mapped firing solutions against the 3 human vessels. Everything proceeded according to hegemony military doctrine, overwhelming firepower applied with surgical precision. Sir, the tactical officer reported, all weapons locked on target, awaiting your command. Vexthul looked at the 3 ships, their sleek lines suggesting capabilities that defied conventional understanding. Then he looked at Maya's patient expression. the same calm confidence she had displayed while dismantling his elite soldiers. "Belay that order," he said quietly. "Open communication channel for dialogue." His tactical officer stared in disbelief. "Sir, we have clear tactical advantage. 3 ships against our entire fleet." "Do we?" Vexthul asked. "How many times have our assumptions about human capabilities proven accurate in the last week?" Maya's smile suggested she had heard every word. "A wise choice, Admiral. Shall we begin with a simple demonstration of what we've actually been capable of all along?" The human ships moved with fluid grace that made hegemony vessels look like clumsy cargo haulers by comparison. They didn't attack. Instead, they performed maneuvers that should have been impossible according to established physics. Acceleration patterns that would have liquefied any known biological organism, direction changes that violated conservation of momentum, energy emissions that suggested power sources beyond current galactic understanding. "Admiral," the science officer whispered, "their ships are operating according to principles we don't recognize. This technology is centuries ahead of anything in the galactic database." Vexthul watched the display with the growing realization that his entire worldview was crumbling. "How long have they possessed these capabilities?" "Unknown, sir. But based on the sophistication of their systems, possibly since before they achieved interstellar travel." The truth hit like a physical blow. Humanity hadn't stumbled into the galactic community as primitive newcomers. They had arrived as an advanced civilization deliberately disguising their capabilities, studying every species they encountered while presenting themselves as harmless traders. "Maya Chen," Vexthul said into the communication channel, his voice heavy with new understanding. "What do you want from us?" "That depends entirely on you, Admiral. Your species has spent centuries conquering others through superior force. We're offering you the chance to learn what happens when that's no longer an option." On the tactical display, more ships began appearing. Not 3 vessels, but dozens. Each one radiated the same impossible energy signatures, each one moving with the same physics-defying grace. Maya's ship had never been alone. It had been the visible tip of a fleet that had been watching and waiting. "Sir," communications reported, "we're receiving similar reports from across hegemony space. Human ships are revealing themselves at every major military installation. All of them display technology that exceeds our understanding." Vexthul realized he was witnessing the end of an era. For thousands of years, the hegemony had expanded through military might, conquering species after species through superior technology and tactics. Now, they faced opponents who had been studying them while pretending to be victims. "What are your terms?" he asked, the words feeling like defeat on his tongue. Maya's expression softened slightly, showing something that might have been understanding. "We don't want conquest, Admiral. We want cooperation. For 200 years, we've watched galactic civilizations stagnate through endless conflicts. Species waste resources fighting each other instead of advancing together." She gestured, and the displays around her showed star charts marking conflicts across the galaxy. Every war, every conquest, every act of aggression has cost the galaxy potential progress. How many scientific breakthroughs have been lost? How many cultural achievements destroyed? How many species have been reduced to servitude instead of contributing their unique perspectives? And you believe you can change that? We know we can. We've been preparing for this moment for generations. Every Masterborn operative has spent decades learning not just about military capabilities, but about culture, science, art, philosophy. We understand each species' potential contributions to galactic civilization. Vexthul found himself facing a choice that would define his legacy. Resistance meant facing opponents who clearly possessed overwhelming technological superiority and had been planning this moment for centuries. Cooperation meant abandoning everything the hegemony had built its identity around. What happens to those who refuse your invitation? Maya's expression hardened slightly. Admiral, we've spent 2 centuries being dismissed, ignored, and attacked. We've watched our merchant vessels raided, our colonies threatened, our people treated as inferior. That era is ending today. You're threatening us. I'm informing you of reality. The galaxy's power structure is about to change fundamentally. You can adapt to that change, or you can be swept aside by it. But the choice belongs to you. Around Vexthul, his bridge crew waited for orders that would determine not just their fate, but the future of their entire civilization. The hegemony had conquered through strength, but strength was meaningless against opponents who had been concealing capabilities that defied understanding. If we agree to cooperation, Vexthul said slowly, what would that involve? Genuine partnership. Your species' military expertise combined with our technology and strategic planning. Joint research initiatives that advance all participants. Cultural exchange that preserves each species' unique identity while building mutual understanding. It was everything the hegemony had claimed to want when they first began their expansion. Progress, advancement, security. But they had pursued it through conquest instead of cooperation, and now faced opponents who offered what they had always sought through methods they had never considered. Admiral, Maya continued, your choice will influence how other species respond to our revelation. The hegemony's decision will set the precedent for galactic civilization's future. Vexthul looked at his tactical displays one more time, seeing the overwhelming evidence of human capabilities that had been hidden for centuries. Then he looked at his crew, seeing their confusion and fear as everything they had believed about their place in the galaxy crumbled around them. Open a channel to Hegemony High Command, he ordered finally. Priority Alpha communication. The future was about to begin. 6 months after what historians would later call the Great Revelation, Maya Chen stood on the observation deck of New Geneva Station, watching as ships from dozens of species docked together in peaceful cooperation. The station itself represented everything humanity had been working toward, a massive collaborative effort where advanced human technology merged with the unique capabilities of their former enemies to create something unprecedented. The transformation had not been without its challenges. 3 species had initially chosen resistance over cooperation. The Vorthon Empire's rigid military hierarchy had difficulty accepting that their inferior trading partners possessed technology centuries beyond their own. The Christek Consortium had attempted to continue their aggressive expansion, believing that their automated systems could overcome human advantages through sheer numbers. The Razek Dominion had simply refused to acknowledge the new reality, launching a desperate attack against human colonies with the fury of a dying predator. All 3 had learned the truth about human capabilities through direct demonstration. The Vorthon assault on the Proxima Centauri system had lasted exactly 4 hours and 17 minutes. Their invasion fleet of 300 vessels had encountered what appeared to be a handful of human defensive platforms. The subsequent battle had resembled a master chess player competing against enthusiastic children. Vorthon commanders, trained in tactics that had conquered 17 star systems, found their strategies anticipated and countered before they could fully develop. Their ships were disabled rather than destroyed, a mercy that emphasized humanity's overwhelming superiority while preserving lives that could contribute to galactic civilization. The Christek Consortium's automated war machines had proven equally ineffective. Their vast factory ships, capable of producing thousands of combat drones per hour, discovered that human electronic warfare capabilities could turn their own creations against them. Maya had personally led the operation to capture the consortium's primary manufacturing station, walking through corridors filled with armed drones that had been reprogrammed to serve as her escort rather than her opposition. The Razek Dominion had presented the greatest challenge, not because of their military capabilities, but because of their cultural commitment to death before dishonor. Their warrior code made surrender impossible, forcing humanity to demonstrate capabilities that went far beyond what they had previously revealed. Maya still carried the memory of that final battle, Masterborn warriors moving through Razek vessels like ghosts, disabling opponents with surgical precision while their targets struggled to comprehend how creatures they had dismissed as weaklings could move faster than their enhanced reflexes could track. "Contemplating the cost?" asked a voice behind her. Maya turned to see Director James Harrison, the man who had coordinated humanity's centuries-long deception from the shadows. His apparent age of 60 masked the truth that he was one of the oldest Masterborn alive, his enhanced physiology allowing him to live far longer than baseline humans while maintaining the appearance of natural aging. "Contemplating the necessity," Maya replied. "We could have maintained the deception longer, given other species more time to adapt to the truth." Harrison joined her at the viewing port, watching as a massive hegemony cargo vessel docked alongside a sleek human research ship. The cooperation between the crews was genuine now, born from mutual respect rather than the condescension that had characterized previous interactions. "The timeline was always going to be compressed once we began revealing ourselves," he said. "Better to control the pace than to react to accidental discoveries." Maya nodded, though part of her wondered about the roads not taken. The great game had required sacrifices from every Masterborn operative. Decades of their lives spent pretending to be something they weren't, enduring treatment that ranged from patronizing kindness to outright contempt. Every insult absorbed, every display of mock weakness, every moment of simulated helplessness had been necessary to maintain the illusion. "Status report on integration efforts?" she asked. Harrison activated his personal display, showing data streams from across the galaxy. "Better than projected. The hegemony integration is proceeding smoothly. Admiral Vex Thul has proven to be an effective advocate for cooperation. Christek leadership has embraced joint research initiatives, especially after seeing what our manufacturing capabilities can achieve. Even the Vorthon Empire is beginning to adapt, though their command structure requires more delicate handling. And the Razek? Surprisingly, the most successful integration of all. Once they understood that they were facing warriors rather than merchants, their cultural framework could accommodate the new reality. Honor combat is honor combat, regardless of the participant's species." Maya smiled at that. The Razek Dominion's warrior culture had indeed proven adaptable once they realized that humanity possessed its own military traditions. The discovery that human Masterborn had been studying their combat techniques for generations had initially sparked outrage, but gradually transformed into professional respect when they understood the dedication and skill required for such long-term deception. "Incoming transmission from the Galactic Council," Harrison's aide announced through the station's communication system. Maya and Harrison exchanged glances. The Galactic Council represented the older, more established species who had watched the recent upheavals with growing concern. They had remained neutral during the initial confrontations, but their silence was becoming increasingly problematic as the new order solidified. The main display activated, showing Chancellor Mordeth of the Etherian Collective, his crystalline features reflecting the lights of what was presumably the council chambers. Behind him, representatives from a dozen species that had dominated galactic politics for millennia waited with visible tension. "Director Harrison," the Chancellor began, his synthesized voice carrying formal coldness. "The Council requires immediate clarification regarding humanity's intentions toward established galactic governance." Harrison stepped forward, his demeanor shifting subtly to the diplomatic persona he had perfected over decades of negotiations. "Chancellor Mordeth, humanity seeks partnership within existing frameworks wherever possible. We have no desire to overthrow institutions that serve galactic civilization effectively." Yet you have unilaterally altered the balance of power through deception spanning centuries. The accusation hung in the air with the weight of absolute truth. Maya felt the familiar tension that had characterized all their interactions with established powers, the delicate balance between demonstrating strength and avoiding unnecessary confrontation. "We have revealed capabilities that were always present," Harrison replied carefully. "The deception was never about the nature of those capabilities, but about their scope and application." Chancellor Mordeth's crystalline form flickered with patterns that indicated deep thought among his species. "The Council has concerns about precedent. If one species can maintain such extensive deception, what prevents others from similar actions?" Maya stepped forward, her movement drawing attention from every council member visible on the display. "Chancellor, with respect, that concern assumes other species possess capabilities they have been concealing. Our intelligence gathering over the past 2 centuries suggests otherwise. Your intelligence gathering represents precisely the problem under discussion." "Does it?" Maya's voice carried the edge of challenge. "Every species in this conversation has intelligence networks. Every government monitors potential threats and opportunities. The difference is that we were more effective than anticipated." She gestured toward the viewing port, where the mixed fleet continued its peaceful operations. "The real question is whether the Council prefers the old system of constant conflict and stagnation or the new possibilities for advancement that cooperation offers." Chancellor Mordeth's form shifted colors, a sign of emotional response that his species rarely displayed publicly. "You speak of cooperation while demonstrating overwhelming superiority. How does this differ from conquest?" "Because conquest seeks to dominate," Maya replied. "We seek to elevate. Every species we've encountered possesses unique capabilities and perspectives that could benefit galactic civilization. The hegemony's military expertise, the Christek Consortium's manufacturing innovations, the Vorthon Empire's organizational skills, the Razik Dominion's warrior traditions, all of these represent valuable contributions." "And what of species that lack such obvious contributions?" Maya smiled, recognizing the deeper question behind the Chancellor's words. The Etherian collective and most Council species had built their positions through age and accumulated influence rather than specific capabilities. They feared being relegated to irrelevance in a new order based on practical contributions. "Chancellor," she said gently, "your people have maintained stability and governance across the galaxy for over 3,000 years. That experience represents perhaps the most valuable contribution of all. Humanity may possess advanced technology and military capabilities, but we lack the institutional knowledge required for effective large-scale governance." The relief in the Chancellor's crystalline features was subtle but unmistakable. "You propose maintained Council authority?" "We propose enhanced Council authority, supported by capabilities that can enforce decisions without relying on member species' military contributions. Imagine governance backed by genuine strength rather than the threat of economic sanctions or diplomatic isolation." Harrison nodded approvingly at Maya's approach. This had been the critical negotiation from the beginning, convincing established powers that humanity's revelation enhanced rather than threatened their positions. The old system had been built on careful balances of power that prevented any single species from dominating. The new system offered the possibility of genuine cooperation backed by overwhelming deterrent capability. "The Council requires guarantees," Chancellor Mordeth said after consulting with his colleagues. "Assurance that human capabilities will not be used to override legitimate governance decisions." "Accepted," Harrison replied immediately. "We propose the establishment of joint oversight committees with Council representatives maintaining authority over policy decisions while human Masterborn provide enforcement capabilities where necessary." "And what of species that refuse integration with this new framework?" Maya considered the question carefully. The three species that had chosen initial resistance had been handled with as much restraint as possible, but the underlying message had been clear. Cooperation was not optional in the new galactic order. Species retain the right to self-governance within their territories, she said finally. However, aggressive actions against other species or attempts to disrupt galactic stability will face immediate response from joint defense forces. Joint defense forces. Human military capabilities combined with traditional species expertise and council oversight. A true partnership rather than human dominance masked as cooperation. The conversation continued for another hour, covering details that would shape galactic governance for generations. Maya found herself impressed by the Council species' ability to adapt their thinking to new realities while maintaining the institutional frameworks that had provided stability for millennia. When the transmission ended, Maya and Harrison stood together in the observation lounge, watching the continuing ballet of ships from former enemies working in harmony. "Do you think they understand what we've actually given them?" Maya asked. "Some do," Harrison replied. "The smarter ones recognize that we've provided the enforcement mechanism they've always lacked. Council decisions will now carry genuine authority rather than relying on economic pressure or diplomatic isolation. And the others? Will adapt as they see the benefits. Peace backed by strength, advancement through cooperation rather than conquest, stability that doesn't require constant military expenditure by member species." Maya nodded, but her expression carried thoughtful concern. "The younger Masterborn are getting restless, centuries of hiding their capabilities, and now they're expected to continue serving in support roles rather than leadership positions." "Growing pains," Harrison acknowledged, "but necessary ones. Leadership requires more than enhanced capabilities. It requires wisdom, experience, and understanding of complex social dynamics. Most of our people spent centuries learning to hide rather than learning to govern." Unlike us, Harrison agreed. "We learned to manipulate social structures from within, to understand power dynamics well enough to navigate them invisibly. That experience will serve us well as we transition to open cooperation." Maya turned back to the viewing port as new arrivals caught her attention. A formation of ships she didn't immediately recognize approached the station with the cautious movements of first-time visitors. "Who are they?" she asked. Harrison checked his display and smiled. "Representatives from the Frontier Alliance, the species too small or remote to participate in council politics. Word about the new order has reached even the galaxy's edges." Maya watched as the small ships were guided to docking ports with the same courtesy extended to major species. This had been one of humanity's primary goals, ensuring that galactic civilization included everyone rather than just the powerful. "How many?" she asked. 47 species so far, with more arriving every week. Most have populations smaller than a single human city, but each possesses unique perspectives and capabilities. Any problems with integration? The opposite. Most are relieved to see an end to the constant pressure from expansionist powers. They view the new order as protection rather than conquest. Maya felt a deep satisfaction at that news. The Great Game had always been about more than demonstrating human capabilities. It had been about creating a galaxy where every species could contribute without fear of conquest or subjugation. "Status of the deep space exploration initiatives?" she asked. "Ahead of schedule. Joint human Crystech manufacturing capabilities are producing exploration vessels at rates that exceed all previous galactic efforts combined. We should have comprehensive surveys of the outer rim completed within 5 years." The exploration program represented one of the most exciting aspects of the new order. With conflicts between species largely eliminated, resources could be redirected toward expansion and discovery rather than military expenditure. Human technology combined with other species' expertise was already producing results that would have been impossible under the old system. Any signs of external threats? Harrison's expression grew serious. Long-range sensors have detected artificial signals from beyond the galactic rim. The signatures don't match any known technology, including our own. Maya felt a familiar thrill at the possibility of new challenges. Distance? Approximately 2,000 light-years beyond the furthest human settlements. The signals suggest industrial activity on a massive scale. Recommendations? Continue monitoring while accelerating integration efforts. If we face external threats, we'll need every species working together effectively. Maya nodded, understanding the implications. Humanity's revelation had solved the galaxy's internal conflicts, but the universe contained challenges beyond their current borders. Whatever lay beyond the rim would face not a collection of squabbling species, but a united galactic civilization backed by human technology and organizational capabilities. "How long until we're ready?" she asked. "For exploration contact?" 6 months until we have ships capable of reaching their territory safely. For potential conflict? Harrison paused, calculating variables that included technology development, military integration, and psychological preparation. 2 years until we could field truly effective joint forces. Then we have our timeline. Maya turned from the viewing port, her expression carrying the same patient determination that had characterized humanity's centuries-long preparation for this moment. Continue integration efforts, accelerate exploration programs, and begin preliminary planning for contact with whatever intelligence lies beyond the rim. And if they prove hostile? Maya smiled with an expression that would have been familiar to Admiral Vexthul and the other commanders who had learned the truth about human capabilities through direct experience. "Then they'll discover the same thing our former enemies learned," she said simply. "Sometimes weakness is a lie, and sometimes the prey turns out to be the predator." As she walked toward the station's command center, Maya reflected on the journey that had brought humanity to this moment. 2 centuries of careful planning. Generations of Masterborn sacrificing their true identities for the greater good, countless hours of intelligence gathering and strategic preparation, all leading to a galaxy where cooperation replaced conquest and shared advancement replaced zero-sum competition. The great game was over. Humanity had won not through military victory, but through patient demonstration that there was a better way to organize galactic civilization. Now the real work could begin, building a future worthy of the price that had been paid to achieve it. Outside the station, ships from dozens of species continued their peaceful dance among the stars, no longer separated by suspicion and conflict, but united in common purpose under the guidance of those who had learned to hide their strength until the moment came to reveal the truth. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly what humanity had planned all along.